Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery, and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's episode is called Robbery, Kidnapping, or Revenge. Danny Goldman was about to celebrate his 18th birthday. It was March 1966, and life in Surfside, Florida, a suburb of Miami, was good. His father, Aaron, was a successful contractor and builder, and his mother lent her skills to their business as an interior designer. The Miami Beach high schooler was frequently seen by neighbors in the family garage, working on television sets or learning anything he could about electronics. That was if he wasn't with his girlfriend, Sharon Lloyd. Like most young men during the 1960s, Danny and his mother Sally had plans to travel to the Selective Service office on his birthday to register him for the draft before beginning their celebrations. Unfortunately, that day would never come for the Goldman family. Early in the morning on March 28th, while Danny and his family slept, an overweight man with graying hair broke into the Goldmans' home. Wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap pulled over his face, the man found an unlocked patio door and snuck inside. He bound the husband and wife's wrists behind their back with cords from their Venetian blinds, and went so far as to tie knives into the knots to prevent the couple from escaping them. He covered their mouths with adhesive tape, and in a strange turn, conscientiously made sure that Sally's knots were not too tight and that she could breathe. To their horror, the intruder next woke up Danny, forced him to dress, bound his arms and mouth, and brought him into their room. He said, quote, "Don't be frightened or scream. You know what I'm here for." When the couple asked him what he was talking about, the stranger demanded the $10,000 in cash that they had hidden in their home. This scared Aaron. They had no large sum of money in the house. Hoping to pacify the man, Mr. Goldman told him that they had no cash on hand, but offered to write him a check instead. This seemed to anger the intruder, who insisted he knew the money was there. He then grabbed Danny and stated that he would keep the boy to make sure his parents paid. He told them, "I wanted $10,000, but with the help I'll need now, it'll double. You get up $25,000. If you don't get it for tonight, the price will double tomorrow. I'll call you about 6 or 7 tonight with instructions." They were then told that if the money was not dropped to his satisfaction, he would kill Danny. "Do what the man says," Danny's father instructed as the man took the teen away in the boy's white Rambler sedan at gunpoint. As the car pulled off, Aaron worked the tape on his mouth loose and began to yell. A neighbor across the street woke to hear him screaming, "Please help me, get the police, help me." The man sent his 18-year-old son to help while he called the police. When officers arrived, the couple was able to tell them very little about their son's abductor. They described the man as being a white male in his 50s. He stood at about 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighed between 180 to 200 pounds, and had a stocky build. He also had a distinctive walk, possibly due to an injury. He stated that the man wore glasses with silver rims and spoke with a Midwestern accent. Strangely, Aaron felt as though he knew the kidnapper, but he just couldn't place him. Within 12 hours, Danny's car was found several blocks away on Harding Avenue. The call that they were told to expect that night from the kidnapper never came. While the family waited anxiously, investigators were following what few leads they were able to develop from the crime scene. A latent print was found on the sliding glass door where the kidnapper entered. The man had apparently tore his latex gloves during this time in the house and left a piece behind. On it, a partial fingerprint was found, but no match to it could be made. Soon the FBI got involved. They believed that Danny had been taken in retaliation for something that his father had done. In the months before, Aaron had been aiding the FBI in a fraud investigation. He was a board member and shareholder at the local Five Points National Bank. In 1965, he'd started to notice several unsecured loans that the bank directors were allowing, and he complained about the practice. The FBI took notice, and in January of 1966, 19 bank directors and officers were indicted on federal fraud charges. The unsecured loans that Aaron Goldman complained about included cash and other assets that were being funneled to associates of Jimmy Hoffa and Santo Trafficante, a local mob boss. Unfortunately, when this avenue was explored in relation to the kidnapping, they could find no connection. The passage of time can be cruel, and for over 20 years, Danny's case grew cold. In 2010, his father passed away, and at the start of 2012, his mother passed away as well, neither one ever finding out what happened to their son. That's when a small group of people that included ex-cops, a former mayor, and friends who knew Danny as children decided that enough was enough. Paul Novak, an attorney and former mayor of Surfside, led the group. They took the notes and records that Sally had kept on the investigation and pored over its contents. Together, they created a website called surfsidekidnapping.org that contained documents, original videos, and their theories. They were able to take a case that was labeled as administratively closed and list it in national, state, county, and local databases for missing people. Because of this, Miami-Dade police released a new age-progressed image of a 64-year-old Danny. The group were also able to take a DNA sample from Danny's 95-year-old aunt days before she passed away. This gave investigators comparison samples and profiles that were soon listed in CODIS and NamUs. The group agrees with the FBI and believes that Danny was targeted by organized crime bosses to teach his father a lesson. Their theory is that there were actually two men involved in the abduction. Newer technology was used, and when the evidence was examined again, the partial print from the glove fingertip and the latent print found on the sliding glass door came back to a man named George DeFeece, a man the Goldmans did not know, but fit their description of the kidnapper. Through witness statements and re-questioning of some of those involved, they found that DeFeece took Danny to the apartment of a man known as Chicken Cacciatore, Santo Trafficante's cousin. The apartment was a few blocks from where Danny's car was found abandoned. It's believed that Danny was killed there, and his body was then taken to North Miami Beach, where an ex-cop named Wally Jefferson moored his boat, the Ponderosa. The three men disposed of the remains in the Gulf Stream. Investigators took all the evidence that the surfsidekidnapping.org group had collected and rechecked their theories and information. The information on DeFeece included the man's fingerprint match, his connection to the Trafficante organization, and his odd gait, which was caused by an illness and not an injury. To top everything off, information was found that showed DeFeece took a taxi to the Goldman house the day of the murder. Quote, "We uncovered an enormous amount of hidden information. This case has tentacles like you would not believe," Novak said. It is also now believed that crucial evidence in this case was intentionally lost by officers who were on the mob's payroll. However, the information found was enough to take a major step. In December of 2021, Miami-Dade police cold case detectives announced that they had solved and closed Danny's kidnapping case. People who knew the family still remember how devastated Sally was after her son's kidnapping, and in all the years that followed. They say she was never the same after losing her only child. Her heartbreak actually helped fuel the surfsidekidnapping.org group. The cold case team found a letter from Sally Goldman. Paul Novak said, quote, "The letter expresses her hope that Danny will never be forgotten. It says that she hopes that if people keep the memory alive, that hopefully one day somebody will hear something or see something and will have some answers." Now, 56 years later, more people know about Danny than ever before, thanks to a group of amazing people who committed to finding the truth. Case cracked. I would like to thank the Miami Herald, surfsidekidnapping.org, Miami CBS Local, WLRN.org, newspapers.com, Twitter, people.com, and NBCmiami.com. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is to discuss it with us now. Some of you out there might be thinking, this story seems pretty familiar. You might have actually heard our Seriously Mysterious episode about this case. However, when we recorded that, they didn't consider this case closed. So it's now officially a case cracked.
Oh, yes. Now, at the time that we actually recorded the podcast, which, by the way, it's called A Man Named Chicken, if you'd like to give that a listen, it focused more of the investigation on Joe Chicken Cacciatore. So if you listen to the podcast, you'll get a totally different perspective.
Yeah. Now, Christy, we didn't really get this in the script. What happened to George DeFeece?
He died of natural causes.
Okay.
Yeah. No justice for this family.
Yeah. I wish, I don't know. We hit a lot of that outcome, but with a case like this, a cold case, and especially I think with DNA where it's at right now and so many of these types of cases being solved in this way, we're just going to have a run of this outcome until law enforcement basically catches up, and all these cold cases that can be solved with DNA have been. But was there anything that you were surprised to learn in terms of the new details and with the case being solved now?
Well, there was, because the 5 Points investigation was much larger than I ever realized. When Aaron Goldman helped the FBI and had those 19 bank directors and officers indicted, it not only exposed names like Hoffa and Trepacante, but also Meyer Lansky, who was known as the mob's accountant.
Oh, okay.
Now that extended out to police officers, court officials, and other banks controlled by organized crime. You have a giant network of criminals working under them. And it also included the Watergate burglar, Frank Sturgis. I mean, there were so many people wrapped up in this.
Yeah, getting to the accountant is interesting because the accountant would have the records for a lot of the connectivity here. So that's, that was a pretty big find.
SurfsideKidnapping.org also tells us after those indictments, 5 Points Bank was bought by Miami National Bank, which was also an organized crime front. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So effectively, Aaron helps bust a few players, but the big game goes on.
Keeps going on. And he lost his son in the process.
Yeah. Horrible price to pay for trying to do the right thing, right? Another interesting perspective on all this now is how they believe that the case actually went unsolved because of those law enforcement mob ties.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
All of the evidence lost, everything they did.
I'm sure it slowed this down by decades. They probably, if they had decent investigators right on the top of this, they probably could have gone after some charges pretty early on here. They're just working with whatever was left behind at this point, so you got a piece of a latent print, which honestly, I don't know why they couldn't have made that disappear. Maybe they just thought it wasn't important because it was already ran and they knew it didn't tie back to anyone. You've got this piece of a fingerprint in a latex glove. They probably felt the same way. They were like, they tried to run it. There's nothing on it. Just let that sit there. They probably didn't want to make it too obvious that the whole case file just disappeared.
Whoops.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool that you have these, this cold case team that comes together with relatively limited information that might have been scrubbed by law enforcement, not on the up and up. And they're still able to bring a conclusion to this. I think that's kind of awesome.
It is.
Yeah. Christy, thank you for all your hard work on today's episode. We really appreciate you. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Brandy Fry, Larissa Mertshank, and Sigrid E. O'Hearn. For over 6 years, we've always run limited commercial ads here on YouTube, and we can't do that without support. If you'd like to help the channel keep going and growing, please visit lordandarts.com. There, you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee, like Crimson Topaz recently did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to understand the many unsolved cases we also cover, and we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. Remember, you can get another Lord and Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow, and every Tuesday after that, visit seriouslymysterious.com and remember to subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe below and hit that bell icon if you want to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And of course, I'll be back with a new unsolved mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.